What is up, everybody? Star Wars Dad back for another video today. I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to talk about Twin Suns and the deck list that I have made for this format. And, you know, I'm making this preparing for the 80 card format because I think that's when this is going to get really, really fun. And so this is an 80 card list. Obviously, you know, things will be tweaked by the time that becomes the way to play at 80 cards when the new set is out in a couple months. But I did want to kind of share with you guys my thinking and just my initial thoughts on the Twin Suns format and why I have cards in here that I have. But the first thing that I think is important to talk about with Twin Suns is some of the rule differences from standard play when you're starting to make this. So, you know, the first thing that stands out is the 3 counters. So there's the initiative counter, which you already have in standard play. Then there's the blast counter and the plan counter. So the blast counter is that once you select that counter, your turn is over, but you do 1 damage to each of your opponent's bases, which is pretty good, you know, especially when you get close to the end of the game. So it says you immediately deal 1 damage to each opponent's base, and then if you claim the plan counter, you get to draw a card and discard a card, or put one at the bottom of your deck. I'm sorry. So you're basically just like cycling a card, which is cool. Like if you don't have what you need. So I could see more control style decks wanting to do something like that, like digging for removal early on, when you don't need like expensive things in your hand early on in the game, or digging for that laser blast later in the game to clear the board. And then one of the other big rules is that you cannot pass until you have no other legal actions on your turn. So basically, you're most likely going to end up taking one of these counters, which is pretty cool. I like that. So basically, like, somebody might want to have the initiative if they're an aggro deck, or maybe if they want to have the initiative because they're a control deck and they want to be able to blow up the board before everyone can attack. Or, you know, if you don't take the initiative, then you want to draw a card, like with a control deck, or you want a blast counter because you're trying to put damage on everybody. So I do think it has some really cool things. I think this is going to be a really awesome format once it gets going. And that's why I've started to kind of theory craft. What is the other thing? So yes, you know, it's going to increase to 80 cards after the 4th set. So, you know, obviously the list that I'm sharing with you today, I'm sure will have several cards that get swapped out for better cards as we get more and more cards. The other big thing is just how you win. So basically it says once a player's base has been reduced to 0. So once somebody dies, that player's eliminated and can't take any more actions, right? The player who eliminated them immediately gets to heal 5 damage, which is very important because, like, if you're the one that kills them, then you get to heal 5. So there's definitely some strategy in being the one that eliminates the other player. And then at that point, the game just continues till the end of the current phase. And then once those phases are over, the player with the most HP remaining on their base wins the game. So for me, that is like one of the biggest things that stands out is this right here. The player with the most HP remaining on their base wins the game. So that immediately means to me like healing is going to be incredibly impactful in the Twin Suns format, because you don't, all you have to do is survive, and then to win you need to be the person with the most HP. So basically, like, you just want to be healing. And so that's the first thing I thought of, like, all right, well, I'm just going to be using Iden with something. And then of course you can't use, I really wish you could do hero and villain, because like you could do so many cool things. You could do, like, I mean, everybody would be using young Han mixed with a villainy leader, potentially like Boba or Iden, or some of the new villainy leaders, or even Palpatine, because it's just, you'd be able to cheat things out. That would be nuts, but you can't, unfortunately. So, you know, I chose to go with Iden and Boba, which just, you know, is both of these are two of the strongest leaders in the game. Obviously, Boba's considered the best leader, and then Iden is the best healing leader, right? Which I think is, you know, what my initial thoughts are based on the rules of this game. So of course, everything that heals is in here, and then what I like about, you know, these two colors combined is just, this is like a pure control list. You could obviously play like you know, Darth Vader along Iden to have that red component. You could also play Kira, but again, I want to be healing. I want to have the most HP and have the best opportunity to do so. And there's still a lot of good card draw and a lot of good removal with these colors. You know, with yellow, it's not as much removal as red, but you still have Waylay, No Good to Be Dead. You still have, you know, Cunning. You still have Evacuate. Like, there's just still a lot of ways to control the board state. And you know, green is just incredibly powerful. I don't think it matters too much from again, this is theory crafting, so like, does it matter to have 25 HP or 30 HP base when you're just trying to be the person with the most HP at the end? I don't think so. I think it's more about just having the most HP. I guess that could matter as far as like, you know, I want to be at 26 HP instead of 25. If, you know, so I guess there's a potential that you don't, but ECL is still just like, it's the best base in the game. And, you know, there's still a potential in some games where you could be more of the aggressor too, just depending on how the game state goes. So, you know, that's gonna you know, obviously that's gonna take more testing. Again, this is theory crafting, but I love being able to use the best cards from all these colors. So I mean, I'm using Cunning, I am using Vigilance, and I am using Command, because why not? You know, we have every Sentinel we could have in here. We have Phase Dark Trooper, Cell Block Guard. I'm trying to think if I had the Emperor's Royal Guard. We have Pike Sentinel. We have the Black Sun Starfighter. Yeah, I didn't play the Emperor's Royal Guard just because I don't have as many officials. And I don't have Yularen, which could be... I think the reason I didn't have Yularen is because I didn't have a ton of green units, is what my thinking was. And then look at your top end. Your top end is just incredible. Look at that. That's one of the reasons why you play these colors. I mean, your top end is... you have Bounty Hunter Crew, Fett's Fire Spray, Xanadu, Count Dooku, Vader, First Light, Maul. You have Choose Sides too, which is incredible. Reinforcement Walker, Snoke, Assault Cruiser, Avenger, Relentless, and Devastator. Like, that's just absolutely nuts. And then, you know, you got to think that a lot of these games are going to get to this place of going a little longer, because, you know, everybody's going to be trying to deal with the aggressive player first because they're trying to win quickly. So everybody's going to be attacking that person so that they can't win and stop the game. So what I did want to talk about, and I'll you know, obviously I'm going to share the list so that you can see my original starting point for this list. So in these kind of formats where like you only have one card or one of each card, you want to have cards that do multiple things for you, because you're only able to fit 80 cards in here and you're only able to play one of each card. So you want to have cards that do multiple things, or like a lot of when played or when defeated or on attack abilities, right? Like Reinforcement Walker is amazing in a deck like this, right? Because I can heal, which is what I want to do to have the most HP. I can, you know, draw a card to gain card advantage. You know, it goes well with Timely. You know, I like cards that have Smuggle so that I can pull things out as the game goes on, like a Bazine, for example. I can disrupt my opponent early, or I can smuggle it and disrupt my opponent later. What's another example of this? Salacious Crumb is a good example because you can action stall. with that card. Dr. Pershing is a good example because you can action stall with that card. You're getting card advantage with Pershing. You're getting life gain and healing with Salacious Crumb. What's another good example of a very good card in this type of... No Bargain is a great card, for example, right? Each opponent discards a card from their hand, and you draw a card. So that card does... So if you're playing against 4 people get to discard a card, you get to draw a card. I mean, that's just a very sweet card to play, right? In a format like this. Now, obviously, we're going to get more cards like that are more impactful. But that's an example of one that I just really, really like in a deck like this. Obviously, like Command, Cunning, and Vigilance, because they do multiple things when you play them, so that, you know, depending on what's going on, you want to have diverse cards. And obviously, you know, these are all going to cost 6 in here because we don't have double aspect of anything except for black. But I guess a double black aspect card would be pretty sweet, right? If they start making those. But that would only be for this format. But, you know, cards like that do multiple things, that gives us options. You know, we want to have options. We want to have impactful plays when our cards hit the board. And you kind of just see, like, I'm basically just picking the strongest cards from each, you know, price point as far as resource cost. So Recruit is just very good in here because you have 80 cards. You want to be able to dig. And that's why we also play... a card like Remnant Reserves, where you can search the top 5 cards of your deck for up to 3 units. That's just another example of a card that does a lot in a deck like this. When you have 80 cards and you only have 1 of each thing, you want to be able to search for specific things. So card searching things are great. Command is great too because you can get cards back from the discard pile. That's why Palpatine's Return is in here, because you can get a specific card back from the discard pile. What else? Search Your Feelings to help you find specifically what you're looking for is going to be very good. I'm trying to think what else. Timely is nice because you can smuggle, of course. Pershing is going to be really, really nice in here when you draw that. And as well as Enticing Reward. Enticing Reward is going to be very sweet in a deck like this where you get to search for the top 10 cards of your deck. And keep 2 of those if it's a unique unit. Even just if it's not a unique unit, just being able to see 10 cards is sweet. What else? Obviously, you know, this is the theory crafting, so I'm sure there'll be changes as this becomes playable, you know, from the next 2 sets, because it's after set 4 when it goes to 80 cards, so there'll definitely be some changes. Hopefully they'll be making more cards for this format specifically, like more cards like No Bargain that really are impactful to all of your opponents. And then obviously, like let's start with the colors. So, like, you know, for yellow we're choosing Greedo, Enticing Reward because of card advantage. No Good to Me Dead can be really impactful against like giant units for 2 turns or against a strong leader. Bazine, I love that you can smuggle it. Obviously it's not as effective as it would be one-on-one against an opponent with McClunky, but still just very nice to have to mess up your, you know, an opponent's tempo. You know, Cloud Rider is good just to kind of slow down an opponent. Surprise Strike if we want to be the aggressor, because we are still heavy units. I believe we have like 50 units in here. And I'll show you the breakdown list as well here in a little bit. Boba, of course. I mean, it's just a strong 3-drop unit. 7th Fleet Defenders is shielded space units. It's good. Waylay, of course, to deal with big threats. Lurking TIE Phantom, of course, because it's difficult to remove. Frozen in Carbonite's an incredible card, just, you know, and it's great to have Entrenched in Carbonite. So you're playing like the best of Boba Blue, the best of Iden Green. So of course, we're playing the 3 Triple Dark Raid, which is sweet. You know, the way I look at that is we get in for damage, we can remove a threat, and it can go back to our hand, depending on what we find, which helps increase our hand size too. Just a really sweet card. Cunning, of course, at 6 cost. We are playing the 4 LOM Zuckuss. I'm not sure how great that is. I think my thinking when I was putting those in is like 4 LOM still has ambush. Zuckuss is still just a really good ECL target regardless of 4 LOM. It's still just a great body at 6/6. I just think that was my thinking. I don't think I was thinking I'm going to get the 4 LOM Zuckuss combo off. Tobias and 4 Lom Pike, of course, are in here because they have the smuggle mechanic again. So it's just like, you know, units that I can just pull out whenever as the game goes on longer. You know, obviously I want to have a lot of strong choices for ECL targets like Lom Pike, 4 LOM, Tobias, Gideon, Ruck, Bossk, Syndicate Lackey, Zuckuss, Fett's Fire Spray. So many just very strong ECL targets. Xanadu Blood is a really good one too. You know, Count Dooku is another example of a card that you like in a deck like this where it does 2 things. It, you know, removes something and you get a shielded body. Darth Vader, of course, because it gets you 2 units and kills a thing, potentially. First Light is really sweet in a deck like this when you're trying to close the game out, just to give everything grit, and you can smuggle it out. Choose Sides, I think, is going to be really sweet when you get that card and hit that card, just to be able to steal a big thing for one of your cheap things. I think that card's going to be really good in this format. Snoke is obviously incredibly impactful in a format like this when you have multiple opponents and you weaken all of them with 1 card. That's, you know, that's a really impactful card if it can stay on the board in a format like this. Each enemy non-leader gets -2/-2. Like, that's incredible. I mean, Relentless is nuts in here. The first event played by each opponent each round loses all abilities. Relentless is going to be disgusting in this format. I think Change of Heart's really good in this format. Traitors is good. Barrage, that's going to be interesting. Yeah, I mean, you can spread out your barrage across multiple units. That's crazy. It can deal damage in its power divided as you choose among any number of other units. That's really sweet. But yeah, I mean, my thinking was I want to play Command, Cunning, and Vigilance. Those are 3 of the best cards in the game. I want to play Barrage, of course. I wanted to play all these guys down here, basically, like I talked about already. They're all just incredible. Again, you know, things are going to change in the next 2 sets, I'm sure, with this. But this is, you know, I want to have a starting point, right? Like, and then as new cards come out, I'll start tweaking things, take out the lesser version of cards. Like, for example, Seasoned Shore Trooper is probably going to go. You know, we don't have a huge card pool yet for a deck like this, so a card like that's going to be one of the first cards to go. I mean, I like Inferno 4 and Viper Probe Droid because they allow me to look at things, allow me to look at, you know, set up my draws. Scanning Officer could be really impactful against certain decks. You know, it's hard to say what's going to go. Depends on really how much the cost of the new card is that's going to come in here, and then what it does and all that kind of stuff. And then we're just using, like, as far as blue, we're using every single blue removal, right? Like, we're using all of them. Power of the Dark Side, Make an Opening, Takedown, Vigilance, Fell the Dragon, Vanquish, Rivals Fall, Count Dooku is a removal, Avenger, Super Laser Blast, all those. We have the Subtle Healing, of course. With Iden, we have the top target, the Vigilance, the Make an Opening as ways to gain life. We have the Reinforcement Walker. You know, again, that might be an area that I need to work on more with this list, is more healing. We have Cargo for healing as well. I like the Vigilant Pursuit Craft because, again, it's a Sentinel in space that I can smuggle out when I need it. Yeah, it's basically like when you have things like that in a game that you're expecting to last longer, it just gives you, it increases your hand size, right? Like, it gives you more options when you can play cards from your resources at any time. I mean, I think that, like, you know, tech is going to be really good as long as it stays alive, you know, in these kind of formats, because you're just giving yourself a giant hand size, which gives you an advantage over your opponent. But let's look at the cards, the list, so you can kind of see them a little better. So we have 32 ground units in here. I'm trying to see if there's anything I missed talking about as far as just general ideas, general thinking. Again, I like Death Trooper because it's a unit that can remove something. Veers is good because we have a lot of Imperial units, could be impactful. But that's kind of one of those cards that's like a maybe card. as we get more cards. Client I really like just because it's another way to gain life and having that that action ability that can kind of keep us in the running for highest HP, along with our Iden ability, of course. Yeah, and I think that's really important too. Is like if an enemy unit was defeated this phase, it doesn't say you have to defeat it. It just says if they were defeated. So that means I can heal every single turn, just about, right? So that's really important. So I mean, there's an argument that you might even want to just switch this to the 30 HP base. Again, it's really hard to know that right now until you get like a lot more testing in with these types of decks. I think Long Pike will be really good. When it's on the board, just being able to like shield some random crappy unit and give a shield token to one of your own units or itself. I think Bossk is incredible when it stays on the board. When you play an event, you may deal 2 damage to a unit. I mean, that's going to be good. Again, that's like that synergy with Salacious Crumb and Overwhelming Barrage and just pinging things. Bounty Hunter crew is obviously great. And let me know if like you see or you think of a card in here that needs to immediately come in here. It's hard to make these types of decks. It does take a long time because it is so much to think about, and I wanted to have enough units on the ground because we have most decks are more ground heavy, so we have 32, then we have 13 space units, so 45 units total, 27 events. Emperor's Legion is really good as a way to get cards back, especially like if you had a really big board and somebody blew it up. Sorry, just kind of looking through here real quick. Yeah, I think I pretty much talked about everything. Evacuate's essentially like another laser blast. Turn each non-leader unit to its owner's hand. I mean, that's really sweet. Yeah, I had more upgrades to start off with, but I kind of lowered it down just to the ones that I felt were the most impactful. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good one too, just to take something off your opponent's board. That seems like bounties seem really good. So Bossk is another one you might want to pair with Iden, especially because you can ping everybody when they have a bounty. But I do like that you can play like Frozen Carbonite and Enticing Reward. Obviously with Bossk you could play Deathmark. So yeah, that's kind of the general idea, but I just thought I would share that. I think Twin Suns is going to be a really cool format once we get to that place where we can start playing these decks and kind of competitively, and I think at that point you would start to see tournaments where people start playing these decks. But my initial thinking is I want to play Iden because I want to heal. And I may even want to do more healing with like Yularen and more green focused. I think that's where I originally had started, but I just kind of wanted to more focus on just being as controlly as possible and trying to just not take any damage at all, right? With all of my removal and spells and sentinels and all that fun, exciting stuff. But I can totally see the argument for Vader Green or Bossk even in this spot with Iden, and those would be like the next two that I would consider. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. Just kind of a short little clip. Obviously, I have not found a place to play these decks online yet. If I did, I would absolutely be playing this because this would be so much fun to play. It's also just nice to get a change of pace where you're like playing against people's different ideas of Twin Sun decks and not having to play against Sabine Green and Boba Yellow and, you know, Kira Green and Han Blue every single time. So, I mean, I think that's what's going to be really nice about playing these types of games. And then also just every game's going to be different because you're going to draw different things every game. So that's what makes it fun too. So, but I'm sure, again, this is going to change a lot once we get more cards that are better suited for this format. Obviously, I'm just, this is a starting point, like a very early starting point when there's not a lot of cards in this game yet. And a lot of these cards are just going to be like afterthoughts because they don't do enough, and you want to have cards that do multiple things. But definitely, like, give me your feedback. Let me know what you think of the list, or if you've got your own Twin Suns list, or cards that you think I should put in here. I mean, this is all theory crafting and all just kind of having a discussion and talking about it. So I would love to hear your feedback and your thoughts, and ways that you think that this deck could be improved, or how you would play it, or your thoughts on the Twin Suns format. Would love to hear all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to be a really fun format, and I'm looking forward to playing this a lot. But as always, y'all have a good one, and peace out.